Mina, we've heard a lot about this tragedy of the week, but how is the Korean community responding to this?
Well, I spoke with faith leaders and service providers in the community, and there's a lot of shock, a lot of grief and confusion in the community, and understandably so. I mean, this occurred at a school that caters to Koreans. Among the dead are 2 Korean American women in their early 20s, and then the alleged shooter is Korean American. And so you have a lot of pain and confusion in the community, but at the same time, you also have some folks expressing a little bit of discomfort too, that people might perceive the community differently as a result of this, because the Korean community isn't one that's in the mainstream media very often, and it seems like when they have been for 2 major stories that have involved Korean Americans, they've been shootings, campus shootings, the Virginia Tech massacre, and now this Oikos University shooting. And so there is that concern, whether it's real or not is still a question. The other thing that I'm hearing is that people are wondering if this is an opportunity for the community to really look at stigma in the Asian American it's well documented in the Asian American community that there is stigma against those seeking mental health services. And one go, the alleged shooter, he did, seem to display some signs. There are administrators who say that he had anger management issues. There are students who described him as sort of a loner and sort of unapproachable. And so the community is sort of asking itself the question of, is there something we could have seen? Is there a way we could have reached out to this person to avoid such a tragedy? So there's a lot of that soul searching going on. And then it's not just the community reacting. Mayor Jean Quan, right after the tragedy, used this as an opportunity to say, question sort of the availability of guns in the community. And even at Tuesday's memorial, where they were honoring the 7 victims, she asked the question, is this Oakland? And answered it by saying, no, this is America, where you can access a gun easier than you can access mental health services.
Can you talk a little bit about the Korean community in the Bay Area, Korean American community? Is it very church-based? Is that where a lot of the social interaction goes on? Is it family-based, or is it politics? Tell us a little bit about
the church plays a very central role in the community. It's a lot of times where they will go to, especially recent immigrants will go to be able to develop networks in the community, learn how to reach services, how to start a business. I mean, it's really a very central place for the Korean American community. And so I think one thing that the Korean Christian community would like is to be able to respond in a way that helps people understand that it's a large community, it's a diverse community, and it's one that, although it's sort of flown under the radar, that's very active in trying to improve the situation, not just for Korean immigrants, but also for the Bay Area region as a whole. In fact, that was part of the reason they held the memorial service at Allen Temple Baptist Church. They were trying to say, look, we're very much in the community, and there are a lot of folks that are impacted by this tragedy, not just us.
No, what do we know about this university? I know I can speak for myself. I had never heard of it before. Are there many universities like that where immigrants come and to get special education for certain programs, or? I
don't know very much about this particular university, but a lot of questions are now being asked. Clearly, I'm not alone in that. They've been asking questions about, its accreditation, about its pass-fail rate with regards to nursing, since that's one of the major fields of study that it offers teaching in. And so those questions are now being asked. Certainly, it, like the community, was flying under the radar, and now just come out in a really
I thought what was astounding with this is when you look at the victims, it wasn't just Korean, it really was a melting pot of what America has become, right? And Nigerian and Indian, the Koreans. I mean, it's really quite phenomenal.
Gun violence doesn't know any nationality or race. I mean, that's unfortunate. They think that that's how we look at a community, but this is...
I think that's a perception or a concern within the community. Whether or not the public is actually reacting that way, we'll see. But certainly you're right, and that's why there's this sort of conflict between taking ownership of this whole tragedy, or at the same time just saying, wow, this was somebody who really went off the rails, and we really need to focus on helping the families of the victims and helping our community support each other and rebuild after.
So what's next?
You mean in terms of, well, in terms of this person specifically, he's right now sitting in Santa Rita jail without bail, and he hasn't entered a plea yet. He's expected to at the end of the month when he reappears in court. But the community, I think, right now, what I was hearing from them was that they want to focus on comforting, on using this Passion Week or this religious week related to Easter as a way to really support the community, and then later on maybe focus on these larger questions of community supports. Are there any issues within the community that need to be addressed to be able to?
And of course, there's the centerpiece. He was after a particular administrator over tuition dispute. Are there questions about the amount of tuition or about the ability to get refunds? I mean, is there an underlying question there?
And that could happen anywhere, right? I mean, anyone could have a dispute over a payment and go, as you say, off the rails.
Right. I think the biggest questions that are being asked right now is, what made this person go off the rails? How can we avoid this in the future? And is there anything that, because he was at a school and he was at a Christian community school, so that does leave some asking questions. Why couldn't he get some support?
And he also left, though.
Right, but he did also leave, exactly. And there is that question of what prompted that and what could have been done, to try to...
Right. A tragedy, an emotional one. We're going to turn to one that wasn't quite not as personal as what has happened in Oakland, but down the peninsula there at Yahoo, I understand. This was an emotional week there.
Absolutely.
For another reason about jobs and no jobs.
No jobs, actually. They laid off 2,000 employees, which is its largest RIF in its history. In Yahoo's, it's not a long history of Yahoo, but it's enough time that it's the largest one they did. It was 14% of the entire company, and there are more to come, which I've been writing about. But they're trying to save Yahoo's business essentially, which has been declining in recent years. Although it's still a very profitable business, it still has 700 million people using it. Mostly it's mail and it's news services. It still has faced a lot of competition from Google and Facebook especially. And so they're trying to find a way, as have the past 5 CEOs, to turn it around.
Kara, what happened to Yahoo? When did it go off the tracks, so to speak? Or at what point did it lose its
They've made so many mistakes. It's hard to know where to begin. I mean, it's been a series of strategic misfires by the company's leadership, and it's always a different leader, which is interesting. That's one thing, is they've had a series of leaders who've gone one direction and jerked away in another direction, and it's problematic for a business not to know itself. One of the big jokes in the Valley about Yahoo is that executives can't answer the question, what is Yahoo? I think Google executives can answer that, Facebook executives can answer that, and Yahoo's had a hard time over the years as things have changed. And I think probably the first big mistake was competing with Google during the search wars, when that was not what Yahoo was. It was a technology war that Google won handily, and they ended up not winning it. And then they moved into an area where they were going to do all sorts of original media content. That didn't work out. And then they moved to another CEO, who was the founder, Jerry Yang. And at the time he became CEO, Microsoft made a hostile takeover bid for $41 a share, or 30, it was 35. It was high, and now it's a third of that. So he didn't take that offer, which everyone would have been very wealthy had he taken that offer. And then after that caused a lot of damage. They brought in another CEO, Carol Bartz, who flamed out famously, a very tough lady, but was not the right executive, was from the enterprise space, and she jerked it in another direction, and now they have this new CEO.
What about the board? Where have they been?
Well, that's a very good question. It's probably, I have called it the most incompetent board in internet history, although the AOL board certainly could compete in that regard over the years. It depends who you want to blame here, but I think the board is exactly the problem.
Let me ask you, I mean, 2,000 people are out of work now. We're seeing that the unemployment rate nationally is going down now. We're talking about a tech bubble in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley. Is Yahoo alone in this? Is it something we need to be concerned about for the broader tech community? And can these folks who all of a sudden are out of work, can they go and knock on Facebook's door or Google's door and get some work?
Well, many of them have. Actually, there was a lot of talent exodus going on at Yahoo of really talented people. Almost the entire research organization went to Facebook, Microsoft, and Google. They had a fantastic research organization, which is critical to internet companies to find out what's next. So yeah, a lot of these people will get jobs. The tech industry right now is doing a lot of hiring. It's a very good place to be, and so quite a few of these people, they had a relatively generous severance package. So there will be time for these people to find other jobs. I think the issue is, can this company, which has this many users, find a way to right-size itself and then get to a place where they have a business going forward?
Well, yeah, that seems like the big question. It feels like, just in your description, right? They've tried everything. So is there really a future for a smaller, leaner
And is there room in the market for
Well, it's a
for
question.
Yahoo,
do you use
know?
Yahoo? Do you Yahoo? You
No,
Google,
Yahoo
right?
isn't a verb like Google is.
Well,
I
it
don't
isn't.
I don't Yahoo, I Google.
Yeah, or
you know?
Facebook.
Yeah, so what buttons do they have?
You know, it's got a great media distribution. Yahoo News, Yahoo Fantasy Sports is one of the most popular. Yahoo Mail. They have a lot of products that are very successful and that they could move in certain ways. It just doesn't. It doesn't have to be. The idea of a portal is over, and that they were the portal. And unfortunately, in tech, things change rather quickly. And this could happen to Facebook someday, and it will actually. You know, the internet, the young eats its old, kind of thing. And I think that's really what's happening here. But it doesn't mean it can't remain a dynamic and interesting company and have a lot of offerings to consumers. It also has a great brand worldwide. That's another. It's not a situation that AOL has gotten itself into. It's a very popular brand. It's a great brand. Regular consumers don't think about the mess, the board mess and the management mess that's been present here. And so it certainly has a chance, and it's very profitable at this point. It's just not growing, and that's really, internet companies, technology companies have to grow. And when you look at something like Apple, which, you know, it was almost bankrupt really when Steve Jobs came back, it cut itself down. It had hundreds of whatever, a lot of products, and it moved down to 4 products. Well, now it's the most valuable company in the world. So,
well, I'm hearing people say that they actually some people like this new CEO's moves. They think he's being really aggressive and decisive.
Yes. Well, he's being aggressive, suing Facebook over patents. Some are questioning a little too much aggression. Facebook is one of their partners, and they sued them without warning, pretty much. So he's doing a lot of stuff. So the question is, you know, you have to wonder. There's an expression: are you active or productive? He's very active. We'll see if it's productive or not. We'll see. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Will all of the sorrow that accompanied these firings, so it wasn't just firings, I mean, it was done I'm told, in a pretty brutal way.
Tough, yeah.
How much will that hurt him in trying to move forward?
You know, he's a tough, gruff guy from Boston. He likes to do his Boston accent thing, talk about the Red Sox. I think when you're firing people, you might want to be a little nice, kind of thing. You know, the night before the firing, he talked to the top executives, and he said it was all their fault. I think, you know, when you've had this very rocky situation over a couple of years, you don't need someone to tell you you're an idiot. You already know it. So I wrote something saying that, I mean, you might want to, when you're getting a pink slip, you might want to be a little nicer to someone. But, you know, he's being tough, and I guess he feels this is the way to do it and to knock these people into shape. It didn't work with Carol Bartz, for sure. Yeah. But
well,
we'll see.
He came from a good paying gig at PayPal, right?
He's being very well paid here,
yeah.
much better, significantly more.
So maybe a shorter term.
We're talking about problems in the new industries. We're going to talk about a problem in the old industries of the oil.
The legacy oil industry.
The legacy oil industry. Chevron found itself battling their tax bill for a long time. What's behind that story?
Well, you know, Chevron has been having this long-standing battle with the county assessor in Contra Costa for 8 years now. That Chevron's filed an appeal saying they've been over paying their taxes for 8 years in a row. The first 3-year chunk, Chevron won, and they got a big refund. The second-year chunk, all of a sudden, the new appeals board said, nope, sorry, you not only don't get a refund, but you owe $27 million. So there was a big shock in Contra Costa. No one really expected that to happen. Chevron, least of all, it had been calling around and trying to butter up Richmond city officials and saying, oh, it'll be okay. We'll give you a soft landing. You know, when we win, you know, it'll be, we won't make it so bad. And then, you know, they get the bad news on Monday morning. That they not only, you know, but they were going to have to pay more. So,
Lisa, I mean, it seems such a love-hate relationship with Richmond and Chevron. Yes, it has its jobs. On the other hand, there are the whole environmental justice issues there.
Yes.
Close your windows, get inside if something happens with the refinery. I mean, what's its role now in Richmond? I mean, are there going to continue to be the political fights between the government and the biggest industry there at the refineries?
There just seems to be no sign of it ending. I mean, Chevron is the largest taxpayer in the county. It contributes 30% of the rich city of Richmond's general property tax money. So, and they have jobs, but as you've said, you know, a lot of people in the community would love for them to go away. I mean, Chevron's been there since 1912, something like that. So they've been there a long time.
Any chance Chevron will go away? Is there anywhere else?
Well, Chevron keeps sort of saying saying, hey, you know, if it gets too bad here, too rough here, we'll just pick up our oil refinery and go somewhere else.
They've said that about a quarter of a century at least.
Yeah, but I think as long as it remains too expensive to ship gasoline from other places, no matter how cheap it is to make, you know, they will continue, you know, to make it here. And they've put an awful lot of money into that refinery. And, you know, Chevron, not to, you know, I mean, no one wants to say in defense of Chevron. That's a phrase no one says. But Chevron indeed is entitled to appeal its property taxes if they feel they've paid too much. Their experts say that, you know, the county is over, you know,
really,
charged them.
Don't they have $27 million in the drawer somewhere?
Well, for most of us, that would be like the change in our car, as you suggest. But for whatever reason, Chevron's very convinced that they are being targeted in some way by this assessor, and they are just on principle. They're willing to keep spending money and money. I mean, the county has spent over $4 million just since 2009 on legal bills trying to fight this.
Do they pay up now or do they appeal again?
Well, they must pay in order to take it to court. So you can't challenge taxes in this country that you haven't paid. So you have to appeal. Chevron will have to pay the bill, and then they have a number of months to decide whether they're going to take this second segment to Supreme Court. I'm sorry, to the Superior Court, as they did the first three chunk, which that case is pending. So now we'll see whether they go to Superior Court for a second case.
How does this decision then affect any moves toward a settlement between the county and the company?
Well, gosh, I'm not hearing any kumbaya anytime soon. I mean, these two parties have been warring each other for all these years. The county assessor has legal jurisdiction over setting property values. No one else can tell him or her what to set for. So, and as long as he and Chevron remained at loggerheads, all the other political attempts at intervention seem to have fallen on deaf ears.
So the next step would be, again, I mean, oil company's victim is not a winning strategy.
No,
relations
the PR campaign's been pretty tough for Chevron to make here. Well, Chevron has appealed its 2010 and its 2011 property taxes. So those hearings actually start, you know, in the middle of the month on their next segment. They have a number of months to decide whether they go to Superior Court on the middle set of appeals, and then the first set of appeals, that case is still pending. So we'll see where it goes.
But Lisa, I want to talk about the public relations campaign. It's a big jobs producer there. There aren't a lot of other companies clamoring to get into Richmond.
Yes.
There's not Yahoo's not there, right? I mean,
Right.
so it seems like it really is. There's some people who say, I'm guessing, leave this company alone.
Yes.
Don't make it move somewhere else.
It
and
is a
others are going,
huge schism in the city of Richmond politically between the pro-Chevron people and the anti-Chevron people. And there are, you know, city council campaigns waged there every election cycle as to who's on which side of that camp. And of course, the county is in control of the property taxes that it pays. But
Lisa,
the refinery pays local taxes too.
Can the county use this money? Can Richmond use this money, or does it go in some fund somewhere, or what
Well,
happens?
Richmond and the county will both get a share of this $27 million. It'll be dispersed among the 144 taxing entities in this county of Contra Costa. And so they will get some of this money to spend by the time they spread it all out. Richmond will get about 12% of it, and the county gets about, you know, so we'll see. They won't have a whole lot, but $27 million these days for local governments is nothing to sneeze at.
So it's the tax man versus the oil man. Fantastic.
That's about right. Yeah.
I don't know which one to vote for.
Yeah. When you get to vote for one and you don't get to vote for the other, but I believe, you know, as long as we keep driving cars, we're going to need places like Chevron, even though they continue to get, you know, the rough end of the PR stick. So.
But the taxman has a little bit of the upper hand right
I think
now.
the taxman has the upper hand now because he was accused of you know, treating Chevron badly. Now the appeals board not only affirmed his numbers but raised them. So he's like, I didn't undervalue them. This board says that I didn't bill them enough.
Well, if you live over there, all you want to know is how soon do we get the money?
Yeah, you know, the billing process was underway, I'm told, by the county auditor, and it may be a matter of a few months before the check is literally in the mail.
Okay, well, the city of Richmond doesn't get a lot of good news. Not so good, as we said, for Chevron, but certainly for the county over there. So we will just
we'll see what happens next. I think it's going to be job security for me, so I can't complain. You know?
Okay, seeing what happens next. Now we move to Rachel Gordon and her best friends, the San Francisco Giants.
Let's talk about bad news again. The Giants lost its season opener tonight to the Diamondbacks in Arizona, 5-4. But we have some hope, perhaps, that when they come back to their home opener next Friday, Maybe you'll be at the game and not, well, you can go to the game and watch the show next week for that. But it is the opening of baseball season. The A's open tonight in the United States. In fact, they had their first couple of games in Tokyo against the Mariners, so they're doing that. They might even go to London next year for Major League Baseball openers. But it is the baseball season, and it's politics, it's sport, it's development, so it's a lot of different things. Let's just talk a little bit about the Giants, of what it might mean. Don't forget, it was 2010 when they won the World Series. Everyone's excited about that. Last year, a sad season when the catcher, Buster Posey, got busted, not in any kind of legal matter, but he was hit hard at home plate and was out for most of the season. The Giants brought in some good bats this season. 2 outfielders, Melky Cabrera and Angel Pagan, so they're hoping that they might get some bats there, as long as with their stellar pitching. I mean, we're seeing now at spring training, they're looking pretty fresh, and they're hoping to have a good season. They're really going to be the team to beat in the National League West. And we have to look at the A's a little bit as well. As I said, it's their home opener here tonight, and it's not going to be a good season for them. And if it is, it's going to be a miracle season for them. They do have one exciting player. His name is Jonas Cespedes. Who's good at Spanish? I'm not on that. But he's a really interesting player. He's great in the field. He's a great batter. He's very fast. He came from Cuba, defected first to the Dominican Republic, and so that's going to be their go-to guy this year. But they've really are in a rebuilding mode. So it's kind of fun if you like baseball. It's going to be an exciting season.
It's also kind of fun for me. I've been in this business a very long time, and I'm sitting here with 4 women around me, and one woman is talking about baseball, and that's a gender marker of some sort.
It is, except if you go to the A's games or the Giants games or a lot of the Major League Baseball games across the country, there are a lot of female fans there. The Giants, you have to look at them too as what they've done. They've become such a part of the community in San Francisco. It's not just about sports. They've been doing a lot on the domestic violence front. They've done a lot on the AIDS front. They did the anti-first major league team to do an anti-bullying video. I mean, they've really gone in there and made a mark in San Francisco, which brings us another mark that they want to make, and that's going with a huge development in the city. They just unveiled plans this week publicly saying that right across the canal from AT&T Park, in a parking lot now, they want to put up a $1.6 billion development. That's a lot of money that they want to put into this to develop the land. You're seeing photos now. It's going to be parks, it's going to be housing, it's going to be office space, a lot of retail and restaurants. They said they don't just want the cookie cutter chain stores in it. They really want to have a San Francisco neighborhood to kind of be a continuation of what Mission Bay has been, and really how the neighborhood's built up since in the last decade or so, since the stadium's been there as a presence.
Now San Francisco notoriously gives developers a really bad time. How, is this going to happen, or is this all kind of set?
It's an interesting thing, because we saw what just happened with the America's Cup races in San Francisco on the waterfront, but there's a difference between what happened with the America's Cup and the people just kind of came in from nowhere. Who were they? And what's happened with the Giants. They really have been entrenched in the community. In fact, when they built their new stadium, they did their homework. They brought in Quentin Kopp, the conservative lawmaker turned judge, now he's coming back to a commission in San Francisco, Roberta Achtenberg, and Cecil Williams from Glide Church. So they really kind of know how to get a feel for the community. They've been rolling out their plans, first with members of the Board of Supervisors and at City Hall, then they've been going to editorial boards. So we're going to see this build up, but you're right. People don't like development in San Francisco, so there's going to be a lot of give and take.
That neighborhood is perfect. I run around there a lot, and that's an area you can really unite Mission Bay, which is sort of out there, as almost like an island with that large, it's a large parking lot. It could be fantastic. It would really unite the city,
right?
All the way down 3rd Street.
We're also getting the new UCSF hospitals being built there at Mission Bay, and we have seen a neighborhood grow up. The Rincon Hill, there's one tower now. There might be more there. If you walk down King Street, in that area, you're seeing some more businesses pop up. You're seeing a lot more families with strollers. There's the Mission Bay Library is dynamic right now, and parks are going in there. So it is a chance to build the neighborhood, but we're going to see big fights over things like union jobs for the construction jobs. Are they local hires? That's a big issue in San Francisco. We're also going to be seeing issues about anything, if any views are going to be blocked.
Parking?
Yeah, no, parking. The Giants have done this incredible job of having 50% of the people who come to the games come on public transit. But a big question is going to be, how do you get more people into that area with transit can be afforded.
Well, they do have that rail down 3rd Street now.
Yeah, so all we need is a winning team. Now, if there's a good feel, they're winning.
was a way to
Even
get
parking, even planning commissioners may find it hard to turn them down. Well, thank you, Rachel. Thanks to all of you, in fact, for joining us here tonight.